Yo, what's up? Welcome back. Today I'll be checking out this video, the history of Earth in 10 minutes. You know, I'm always interested in all these things to do with space, the universe, these things. And now with this whole lockdown pandemic thing going on, it means I have more and more time to check out this topic. So without further ado, let's see what this is about.
It can be very difficult today for a person to imagine that life on our planet was once different than it is now. Of course, you can imagine yourself as a medieval knight or even a Viking thanks to historical films, TV shows, and a bit from school textbooks. But what about the time when there were no people on Earth at all? Or were there once distant ancestors of humans who lived so far in the past that they aren't even remembered by Hollywood? Well, while scientists have not yet invented a time machine, I suggest you take a look at the history of our planet with your own eyes. To begin with, let's go back to the past. 4,600,000,000 years ago, our Earth didn't exist yet. There was only a newly formed...
I'm always taken aback by this when time starts to be expressed in millions and billions of years. It always hits me. Although now I've gotten used to these terms when I've been researching all this space and these things. But it always gets me every time.
Proto-sun and a ring of gas and dust. An incredibly beautiful sight. But we're interested in something a little different. Fast forward time a little bit ahead. 4,540,000,000 years ago, our planet was formed. Back then, it was about as far from inhabitable as possible. The conditions on Earth were really hellish. Instead of the usual landscapes, there was a sea of fire from molten rock. There were radioactive elements all around.
And before he goes on, I'm always interested, because he has also skipped that part. I'm always interested in that stage where now they say a cloud of dust in space. Now he has jumped forward to when Earth was just formed. I'm always interested in that part. Between the particles in space to becoming now a sphere. I'm always intrigued by that. I'm always interested, and I can't quite get enough information on that. From the cloud of particles in the space to becoming one solid sphere. I see most people skip that part, and I'm very interested how they came about to become now. Maybe they became some kind of fluid or something. I'm just trying to come up with an imagination, but anyway, let's
continue. And the
surface
temperature reached 4,700 degrees Celsius. That's about 8,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Instead of air, there was carbon dioxide, nitrogen, sulfur, and water vapor. Instead of solid land, magmatic oceans. Add to that the constant bombardment from large asteroids, and you get a picture that's more like the end of the Earth than its beginning. After several million years, as the result of a collision with a young planet called Theia, the Moon was gradually formed. One day back then lasted about 6 hours. With such a short day, having time for anything would be simply impossible. It's good.
And I also wonder, with the 6-hour day, let's say if like our Earth, our current Earth, what if the day became 6 hours? I wonder how would the human body or even the animals, how would they react to that? Because we know for most people we sleep like maybe 8 hours or so. So with the 6 hour. Maybe I don't know how our biology would adjust to that, but it's a good something that came out in my mind.
Didn't exist yet. From about 4,100,000,000 years ago to 3,800,000,000 years ago, the late heavy bombardment hit the Earth, a huge number of asteroids. Some scientists suggest that at this time, there were already oceans on Earth, despite its high temperature. Honestly, I barely believe it, but who am I to argue with scientists? It was the asteroids that helped the planet gradually become covered with water. According to one theory, the asteroids carried with them a tiny amount of life-giving moisture and delivered it to Earth. That's how, over billions of years, about half of the water of the world ocean came to Earth from space. After the bombing...
Wow, I've never heard of that. I always thought that the water also was formed together with the earth as they were, these things were coming together. I never thought that earth was there first and then water came from space later. I've never pictured that.
That is about 3,800,000,000 years ago, the temperature of the Earth began to slowly decline. But current life forms couldn't survive on the planet's surface anyway, because there was no oxygen in its atmosphere, and there was no ozone layer to block ultraviolet radiation. However, there are fossils which are about 3,500,000,000 years old, which means that life on Earth could have arisen much earlier than we used to think. From 3,200,000,000 to 2,800,000,000 years ago, almost the entire surface of the planet was occupied by a shallow ocean, the temperature of which ranged from 55 to 88 degrees Celsius. That's 131 to 190 Fahrenheit. However, microorganisms were already inhabiting this hot water. The land was only volcanic islands, which were slowly growing over time. Just imagine how hot it was. The days began to lengthen, and about 2,500,000,000 years ago, the first supercontinent, Kennerland, began to form. So let's fast forward a little. 1,500,000,000 years ago. Earth days now lasted at least 16 hours. Though
Hey, 16, I think 16 hours is it's a little bit comfortable than the 6 hours that he was talking about earlier. And I also think, I think 16 hours is better than the 24 hours we have now, because I think 24 hours can sometimes be too much, depending on what you're doing. For example, if you're at work, if you're working from morning to evening to night, sometimes it can it can seem to be a long time. But maybe for some people it's a short time, as I said, depending on what you're doing. But I think 16 hours would be a little bit ideal. You work for short hours, you have a short amount of time, because even like for weekends, sometimes they can seem too much. Sometimes you just want to go back to work because maybe you're having too much free time. So I think 6 is less, 24 hours is too much, but I think 16 hours would be just fine.
complex organisms still didn't exist. But lithospheric plates continued moving, and after 400 million years created another supercontinent, Rodinia, and after some time, Pangaea. About 650 million years ago, according to popular theory, our planet was a snowball. Literally. This theory is called Snowball Earth. Scientists assume that everything was completely covered with ice, and even the equator was as cold as modern Antarctica. It's scary to even think what the temperature was at the poles at this time. But even under a thick layer of ice, the planet maintained a fairly high temperature. No ice age can kill volcanoes, and the carbon dioxide from their eruptions, which accumulated in the atmosphere, gradually melted the glaciers. This melting released a huge amount of oxygen, which forever changed the planet. About 541 million years ago, the Cambrian explosion occurred. Temperatures rise.
He's going so fast through these stages. I'm even having a lag following up, but I'm getting his concepts. But I also like to be skeptic, as as they say, when you're doing research, the first thing you should have that comes in hand is to be skeptic. But a lot of these things he's talking about, he's basing them on theories. So And theories, we know they cannot, sometimes they are not 100%, not even 100%. They are not so accurate. But also on the flip side, we also know that much of this is based on an actual thing. I think the problem we might have is the accuracy. When it's talking about the Earth being a snowball to now moving to an explosion of emergence of species and so on. So I think that's why maybe the video would be too short, 10 minutes. But I think that's why people study these things in stages, because it's a big concept to grasp at once. If you're given the timeline, he's giving from 4 billion years ago. But the accuracy of the theories is something that I would be more interested to look at closely, so that I get to understand. Because I understand this is just a summary, but anyway, it highlights all those theories. It's a good
Rising
thing
to 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit, and a record concentration of oxygen caused a huge number of living organisms to emerge. The biological diversity was so impressive that some creatures even developed exoskeletons to protect themselves from being eaten by others. Researchers believe that almost all of the existing types of animals appeared during this period. The length of the day now reached 22 hours. 450 million years ago, plants and arthropods began to actively conquer the land. 419 million years ago, the first insects appeared. About 300 million years ago, most of our planet was occupied by swamps. Many scientists, such as Professor Frederick Rich, hold this view. But the swamps of antiquity were not like modern ones. Some plants reached 30 meters in height, that's about 100 feet, and giant insects flew everywhere. This was thanks to the high oxygen concentration. Be glad that our modern dragonfly's huge ancestors didn't survive to this day. Seriously, that wouldn't be the most pleasant replacement for pigeons. 200.
So there's a correlation between the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere and the size of the insects. And is it just insects only? What about the other mammals and reptiles and all the other species? Is it just the insects? Maybe, yeah, I think I'll have to check further on that.
52 million years ago, the Permian-Triassic extinction event took place, destroying 96% of marine species and 73% of terrestrial vertebrate species. Most likely, numerous eruptions became the cause of extinction. The air was filled with ash and carbon dioxide. There was little sunlight. Plus, lava was flowing everywhere.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've heard on numerous occasions. That thing about the earth being filled with the dust, such that the sunlight would not get on the ground. And, it's to place that into imagination, okay, there are sometimes, like, for example, in some parts of the world, we know there are sand dust and things like this, but now I'm trying to imagine that on a global scale. Like, you look up, everywhere around you there's dust. You cannot see the sky. So that's interesting, because also I understand, like, on Mars they have these things, but it's a wild thing. If people are there to witness it, it must have been. Okay, I know people are not there, but I'm saying, like, for example, right now, if that was to happen right now, it would be terrifying. People would be, I think, chaos would break out. Wow. Anyway, that's why it's good to check out videos like this. They are very educating and they enlighten you.
Anyone could die in this environment. Dinosaurs then arrived to replace the destroyed species. But not only did huge dinosaurs divide the planet among themselves, The continent.
Wow. And this is the other thing. You know, when people talk about revolution and how like organisms, small organisms came to be like huge, and you know how it goes. Most people just picture the dinosaurs, and you can see so far he was talking about other things. So it means like insects were there before dinosaurs. As I said, that's why it's quite it's interesting to check out these videos, because they also give you the timeline, which I think is important in how we picture these things, how they occurred. Because actually, I've never thought that. I thought that insects came later, much later.
Also
Wow.
moved. About 175 million years ago, Pangea began breaking up. The Atlantic and other oceans appeared, and the world began taking on its current form that we see today. At this time, you could find the first pine trees, praying mantises, and bees. 50 million years ago, the power over the planet was then passed on to mammals. Without dinosaurs, they began feeling freedom, actively spreading around the planet and evolving with all their might. Meanwhile, the length of the day had reached almost 24 hours, and the temperature stably remained near the 24 degrees Celsius mark. That's about 75 Fahrenheit. About 8 to 4 million years ago, according to scientists, an important split occurred. The ancestors of modern apes began separating from our ancestors, each heading down their own evolutionary path.
Wow. I've never seen this early man depicted as this. He's always depicted being dark and black. You know, as of course, like they say, the origin is in Africa, but I've never seen him depicted like this. It's quite interesting.
About 4 million years ago, the climate on the planet once again changed. Of course, this didn't happen right away, but it was the climate that turned part of the dense forest into the savanna. According to one theory, this is what made our distant ancestors climb down from the trees, stand up straight, and start looking for food. They were not the only particular species that began fighting.
And that change, that breakaway from a common ancestor, from the apes to humans, that common ancestor thing, breaking, you know, going separate ways. I think that is something, I don't know why up to today it has so much controversy, especially if you talk to not only people who know that kind of who know the details of how that happened, but when you talk like to everyone, you know, the layman, the common people, they have so much controversy, because there are some people who say, how comes the modern monkeys are not turning into human beings? And because I've had this debate so much, even with like especially like religious people, most of them tend to deny this fact. I wouldn't say it's a fact because it's a theory, but when you study it, okay, even for myself, I have a hard time getting that concept. So I don't know why, after all these years of research, it's still a controversy. Because if we are getting details as he started 4 billion years ago, and we are able to come up with some sort of picture how that, what was happening around the earth, what was going on, how the earth was changing. How comes this is much recent? But we are still not, we cannot agree on the details. So it's an interesting
For survival,
topic.
many tried to adapt to the changes. But in the end, only humans succeeded to the degree that they went on to invent tools, the wheel, and Netflix. 1,400,000 years ago, Homo erectus began to colonize Eurasia. 790,000 years ago, they already knew how to use fire. What the population of the Earth was exactly during this period is rather difficult to calculate. You know, the population census at that time wasn't very good. And then, about
Yeah, the census. But by the way, that's another thing that would be good to know. like how I would like to know, like since human beings started existing, like if we were to do an even a rough estimate, how many people actually, like people, I mean people, not their their distant ancestors, like human beings who can function in today's world. Like how many people have ever existed since modern human beings started coming along? It would be quite interesting because as at now I understand we are around 8 billion. So that means if we go back, I'd like to know that because I don't think they can be more than 100,000. They must be less than that. But anyway, if you know about that, let me know. But it's quite. As I said, when you watch these videos, all amount of like questions keeps popping up. That's why it's good to look at these kind of
300,000
things.
years ago, Homo sapiens appeared, the reasoning human. They appeared and began to populate the entire Earth so actively that they still can't stop. If about 130,000 years ago, human,
let me just
they appeared
look
and
at that
began
again. So Asia was the most highly densely populated. And what's going on with South America and Australia? Like South America, I wouldn't imagine because it has good climate, whatever. Okay, it's a quite when put on a map like this, it's
populate
quite
the entire Earth so
gives you a good
actively
idea.
that they still can't stop. If about 130,000 years ago, the number of our ancestors ranged from between 100 to 300,000 individuals, then already 40,000 years ago, the expansion of reasoning human beings covered almost the entire planet. Today, the world's population is 7,800,000,000 people and continues to grow. However, the planet is changing along with its people, so who knows what turn of history awaits us in the future. If you like...
Wow, that's quite interesting. Yeah, that's why I like looking at this. And as I said, because I have more time now because of this whole lockdown station going on here where I am. So it gives you a lot of, as I said, a lot to think about. And, it makes your mind to understand some of the things, even when people are talking, because sometimes people just reject ideas for not even without researching them or knowing what they are actually about. But I like to take my time to look at this and go in the comments and look at what people are arguing about. It gives you it jogs your mind to, and it also helps you to understand other concepts, because when you can grasp this, it's easier also to understand when people are talking about something else that is complicated. But anyway, I stop there for today. If you have not subscribed, kindly do, so that each time I upload a video, you can get to see it. And also go in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this. Give me a recommendation of a video that you think it might be interesting to me. And hit the like button. And till next time, stay safe. Peace.